Siri.
Set a reminder for me. It's for Wednesday at 8:30 p.m.
to tune into the Game Changers podcast with Carla and Jorge.
Okay, I've added it.
Awesome.
How's everyone tonight? How are you, Jorge?
I'm fantastic.
I'm looking at the comments and I love what I'm seeing because Ronnie did a great job with both of us with this
Oh my
AI, right?
I thought it was amazing. He sent me some options on the songs, and I was like, the one that we picked out, the one that we picked, it was like, oh my God, it reminds me of Synchronicity by The Police. And gosh, it was so cool. And the AI pictures, though you look a lot more like Jennifer Garner in your picture than I. Yes, you look a lot more like her than I do like my picture. But hey, I appreciate it. But love awesome. Ronnie, salud, Ronnie.
Yes, thank you so much, Ronnie. He's doing a lot of great stuff for the Game Changers. And please hit him up. Really, this is really amazing for any show, for anything that you do. It's really amazing and it's refreshing. Thank you so much again, Ronnie. So welcome everybody to episode 54 of the Game Changers. Can you believe it? We're like 1 year plus, and we have Jorge Martin tonight. So I'm your host, Carla, and I have a fantastic episode lined up for you. And I'm honored to have Jorge Martin. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that I am sure you will find enlightening. I'm going to just share a little bit about October because it's Cancer Awareness Month. And I know a lot of people in the community that they either kicked cancer or they lost the battle. So we are praying for them in, in this month or any other month. It is a time to raise awareness, support those affected, and empathize the importance of early detection. It impacts millions of people, and early screening can save lives. Support patients, support families, support caregivers, and contribute to the cause through donations, volunteering, and spreading the word. Together, we can make a difference. We will dive deep into some engaging discussions and explore fascinating topics. Stay tuned for an insightful and entertaining show. Before I dive into tonight's episode, I want to extend my gratitude to Evan, Iggy, JC, and the whole TSA team for their invaluable support in providing me with this platform to engage with individuals like you, Jorge, distinguished leaders and innovators within our community. Join me as I explore the lives and stories of my guests, uncovering their personal insights, experiences in fantasy football, and much more. The Game Changers is not your ordinary podcast. It has fostered a cherished community, and I'm honored to share this journey with all of you this evening. Who is Jorge Martin? Jorge is a seasoned sports editor and fantasy sports expert, currently serving as a staff editor at Fantasy Live. His journey in the fantasy sports world began in 2020 with the launch of the Familia FFB podcast, a venture that quickly established him as a knowledgeable and passionate voice in the community. Jorge's extensive experience spans several prominent fantasy sports platforms, including Yahoo, RotoWire, Fantasy Points, and Fantasy Pros. Before diving into the fantasy sports industry, he honed his skills as a sports writer with the LA Daily News, covering high school football and later spearheading multiple publications to DirecTV. For 8 years, Jorge was the publication director for his hometown team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, where he played a pivotal role in shaping the team's media presence. A true sports enthusiast, Jorge is also an avid fan of the Rams and Lakers, proudly supporting his team through their numerous championship victories. Outside of his professional life, Jorge enjoys spending time with his wife Shannon and their three daughters. A fun fact about Jorge is that he once had the unique experience of interviewing Vince Scully, the legendary Dodger broadcaster, which he considers one of his highlights of his career. His deep rooted love for sports and commitment to his family are at the heart of everything he does. Jorge Martin, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. How are you?
Carla, you're making me cry again today. It's it was such a, oh my God, such a heartfelt intro, and just it was fun, kind of like reliving all those days. And thank you for not calling me old. So
No, you're not old.
I appreciate it. No. It's as young as you feel. As young as you feel.
I agree 100%. 100%. So let's start with, fantasy football.
Yeah.
How was, like, can you share the journey from when did you start and how it all happened?
Well, it's wonderful that you have a Kansas City Chiefs flag behind you, because the very first fantasy football player that I ever selected in a draft was Christian Okoye. 1990. That was my first fantasy football draft. It was a touchdown only draft, a touchdown only league. Christian was coming off of a year with like 1,300 yards and like a dozen touchdowns. It was just, he was a monster, and he flopped. So it was tough. It was tough, but I was hooked from day one. It was funny. I kind of was an early adopter to quarterback wide receiver stacks. I had Boomer Esiason and Eddie Brown on that team, but really it just became something. It became something special to me. I won my first, and actually, you're talking about stacks. My very first fantasy football title was 2 years later, where 2 or 3 years later, I forget. I had Jerry Rice and Steve Young. That stack, and they were absolutely money. But you know what? Fantasy football just got in my veins. Fantasy baseball too. It started with fantasy baseball, went into fantasy football, and I've played every year since. And I love the explosion of the different ways to play fantasy football. I think that's why I play in too many leagues. Because number one, I get invited to too many leagues. Thank you all for inviting me. And but also there's so many different ways. Superflex, single QB, how many roster spots in your receivers, tight end premium, just it and then you play Scott Fishbowl, and it's just like Scott just gets his evil, his mad scientist hat, and he just decides how I'm going to play around with all these fantasy football experts. And I just think it's great. And that's why I think I like the variety of it. Fantasy baseball, there's only really a couple ways to play. And it's such a grind that I feel like some people lose interest after a while, unless you're in a really, really committed league. And I've got a couple leagues that are really, really committed. But yeah, it's and it's about the community. I mean, it's really about the people you play with. It's spectacular. I love it. I mean, I'm playing with people from all around the world, and it's just spectacular when I get into these, draft rooms, and it's like I hear there's people in Europe. I hear there's people in in Australia and Mexico, and just it's fantastic. I love it. I love the international feel to it.
I love that. I love that too. So we've met a couple of years ago at the expo.
Yeah.
Do you want to share your experiences at the expo and why you go to the expo every single year, Jorge?
You know what? It's kind of like part family reunion. It's really like a family reunion where you just get together, and I started with Familia FFB. You guys know what family means to me. It's this industry itself. It's like these people, that you communicate with all the time, and just to be all together and to be able to hug everybody and to talk and just be, just be engaged with one another, and just like, not have to be like in a Twitter conversation, or, be on a podcast with each other, and just to be in an actual room, and really it's a weekend. Just, you can taste the season is coming. The season's only about 3 weeks away, and you just, you're honing everything at that point. You're trading some information that you've gotten over the season, and you start, the exhibition games are starting, but really it's about the community. It's funny. I don't know if you met her, Angie Hatfield. She was in one of the Queen's Classic drafts.
Yes.
And we shared the two of us and a third person named Brandon. We got connected through Twitter, through a Twitter chat. We were all flying in about the same time, and we shared an Uber ride from Cleveland to Canton. And I remember Angie asking me, what's the coolest thing about this? And before I could answer, she said, is it the fact that all those Twitter friendships just kind of become real? And I said, absolutely. That's what it is right there, because you see everybody, you touch them, and you hug them, and you drink beers, and among other things. And some next thing you know, it's 3:00 in the morning, and you didn't even realize where all that time went.
You're playing in the middle of the road, and they're calling the police on you. I love that.
Yeah,
I love
and I gotta
that.
we gotta be careful. Yeah, we gotta be careful. I gotta be careful, because Ohio to California is very, very different. It's very, very far, but it's such a spectacular time, and really goes by so quickly. Really goes by so quickly. It feels like it's one long conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This was my third year, honestly. So the first year I went with Doug Orth, and I just fell in love with the community. So it's real, it's different, and it's something new. And look at me, I'm having a podcast out of nowhere, even though I don't play fantasy football. But hey, I'm here.
You know what? And it's kind of, it is so cool how many people like recognize you just from different things. I mean, when I went 2 years ago for the first time, I couldn't believe it. It's like my tiny little Familia FFB podcast, and you're watching it, and you live in Chicago, Boston, wherever, and you're telling me it's great. I'm just like, I'm so flattered. I'm so utterly flattered. And it's I don't have a following like a Matt Harmon or a Dwayne McFarland or an Ian Harditz or Liz Losa.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. People are going to consume what they like, and I think it's fantastic, and I love that you're doing this.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. So tell me a little bit more about the Familia FFB podcast. What inspired you to start this podcast in 2020, and how did it shape your career in fantasy sports?
You want to know? Oh, I love this question. I love this question because we get story time at this point. So it started with a family argument, of all things.
Kidding.
A family argument over tamales and beers and fantasy football. So when does Christmas happen? Fantasy playoffs. And I sat there, and it was like there was a group of us. We were sitting at it, and my family for 15 years has been playing, has had a fantasy football league, really, really competitive fantasy football league. And even though I can't get them to switch for alpha standard, they keep going standard scoring. At least I got them to adopt Fab next year, so that's a good thing. But it's Christmas time, and we're at this table, and we've got all our food and all our beer, and we're just arguing with each other. There's arguments, there's Spanish insults going at each other, and it's just, and I sat there, and I kind of quieted down, and I listened to it for about a minute, and I thought, that is interesting. I'm like, I wonder if we could record this. And so I talked to a couple of my cousins in Spanish, the primos, I said, what do you think? What do you think? Let's, and it was this, it was just before COVID started. And then when COVID happened, I said, okay, we got to do this, because we all had, one of my cousins, it was two of my cousins, my cousin Hector Reyes and my cousin Ricky Torres. And we just loved talking with each other. And we started audio only. We would record via Zoom. And then actually first we started on Skype, then we went to Zoom, and about a year later we started on video. And it just, we had a ball. We would insult each other. It's like, oh my goodness, some of those early episodes, they were horrible, but they would be funny because we would take our cracks at like breaking down things. We'd talk rankings. We would talk, position battles. Just everything. But we would mix in a little bit of our culture, because the other thing that I noted, I wasn't seeing a lot of people of color doing this, and I wasn't seeing a lot of women doing this. So this was only 4 years ago. And so I just said, you know what, let's try. And of course we had to launch on Cinco de Mayo, 2020, because the very first episode, which is still on Spotify, the very first episode we talked, one of the things that we talked about was that Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. So we wanted to debunk that question. But yeah, then just talk fantasy football. And after about a year, my cousins, life started to come back to normal, and I wanted to keep it going. And my cousins had to, they tried to come on when they could, but they couldn't be as regular because life had come back to normal. But I started to bring on guests, and I started to make friends in the industry, and it was wonderful to do that. I mean, that's partly how I ended up at the expo, because just making so many friends in the industry, bringing them on as guests, and having these kind of conversations. What inspired them to be in the industry, and then we would start breaking down players. And I've met some incredible people in there, in that through that way, and that in that industry. And thankfully, because of the expo, and because of the Scott Fishbowl draft, and because of FSGA events, I've been able to meet and interact with people and grow in the industry, and start to do some work for different sites. And gosh, now I'm at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, the guy who inspired me to play fantasy football way back when. He was one of the early people. So now he's my boss. He's the owner of the company, and I'm just over the moon.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. From something you made something else, which is awesome. I just love this story. I love it. So what's the challenges that you faced when launching the podcast, and how you overcame them?
Oh my goodness. Big challenges. Well, technical standpoint, I knew about writing. I knew about editing. I knew about interviewing people and those things. I knew nothing about video. I knew nothing about like what audio equipment to have. So I started talking to people, and friends of mine who had done these things. What kind of microphone should I get? What kind of disc? What's the best way to record? What's the best format to put my podcast out there? So one of the things, the biggest obstacle, I honestly think, is starting. And once you get going, then it's like, okay, you did one episode, because a friend of mine told me, he said, you want to have 3 episodes. And I just sat there and I was like, well, okay, I've got 3 episodes because the NFL draft just happened. This was in 2020. The NFL draft just happened. Let's have 1 episode on running backs, 1 episode on rookie running backs, rookie wide receivers, and rookie quarterbacks. There was the episode. And next thing I knew, just like we just followed the calendar and started to talk about, different positional groups. And then as the season came along, it just had different things. So it was just getting reps. Because I shudder to go back and listen to any of the episodes from before, because man, I don't know how I always liked the sound of my voice, but there are times where I would just be like, I would listen to the ums and I would just be like, I would just cringe, or I would cringe now at the analysis that I offered at the time, because I just didn't know as well. But yeah, I mean, that one and really just, luckily for some people, it's hard to meet people in the industry because maybe they're a little bit more shy. Thankfully, I didn't get the shy gene from thanks to my mom, Mama Martin, Mama Miguel. Muchas gracias for that. Yeah, and but yeah, that to me is that meeting people and getting to know people and networking and really starting to get, starting to do work for other sites, or getting their, using their promo code on my podcast where I can make a little money. That just it just kind of snowballed, and it's been special. It's been special. It's kind of like a great reinvention after all the different things that I've done in my career. And hopefully, I could just kind of ride this one off in its sunset, and kind of maybe once my kids are out of college, do as much or as little as I want. So hopefully, vamos a ver. But that's still many more days, because I'm still having a blast.
That's amazing. That's a great story to share. Thank you so much, Jorge. I love it. I love it. You learn from stuff that you do wrong to get it right.
Yeah.
And this is where you are right now after 4 years. That's just great.
No, learn by doing.
Yeah. Yeah. As a staff editor at Fantasy Life, what are your main responsibilities, and how do they differ from your previous roles?
Well, one of the things that I'm very busy editing a lot of the content that's going up on our website. The almost 400,000 people who subscribe to our newsletter, soon to be more, and to our Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life newsletter and our Betting Life newsletter. I help edit those, put those together, and make sure that they go out on time to all the people and accurately. We've been a couple errors get by every once in a while, because we're human, but luckily we've been on a good long run. And really, I think it's kind of cool being involved in something that's still kind of in the startup phase. I'm employee like number 25 or 26. And it's kind of like, it's fun. It's kind of like an us against the world. It's cool being a part of something bigger. And but really, to me, the greatest part of it is making sure that the content that we have out there is going, that it's accurate. Grammatically, it's perfect, because I think if people see errors, they start to question if the accuracy of the article. And even typos or something like that. Yeah, I want to make sure we don't have those, because they're writers, they're not editors. And luckily, I have both those skills. I do a little bit of writing. I do injury stuff, and then I do some I've done some breaking news stuff here and there. But really, it's just making sure that what we have out there is on time and accurate. And really, I work with wonderful people. And I mean, everybody believes in this, believes in Matthew. So many people were inspired to play fantasy sports and to become a part of the industry because of Matthew. And really, just to be kind of like, we're all rowing in the same direction, pulling on the same side of the rope, and wanting to grow this and have it become a bigger and bigger thing. It's amazing to hear, like, where I started in July, and to see like some of the number of people who are consuming our content, how it's just like escalated monumentally from where we were just a year ago. I'm excited to see where it goes next year. And I mean, we've got big plans for the off season already. But first we got 10 more weeks to go to see about helping some people win some fantasy championships and some bets.
That's amazing to hear. So talking about all of this, what trends or changes have you noticed in the fantasy sports industry since you started in 2020?
Oh, the information, the kind of like the granularity of the information that people can get into. I think even in 2020 and even a little bit before, people were just starting to like look at stuff like SnapShare and and some of the more advanced analytics. And but I think that's a big thing, to plug for the company. Dwayne McFarland, who's the director of analytics, he puts together the utilization report. And now we've got a whole set of analytics based on the utilization report. And I think they're incredible. They are very predictable to help us see how running backs and wide receivers and tight ends, all the pass catchers, how they're able how their volume kind of predicts how they're going to be able to play. And I think the advanced analytics. And really just kind of like some of the things that the granularity that people get into. I don't know if you follow like the Coach Speak Index. That's one thing that's become important. I think another thing, a big plug to my compadre Edwin Porras. I think the information on injuries and comeback from injuries, I think that's a big way. People who subscribe to the Injury Prone podcast, or Jeff Mueller's, or Dr. David Chow, all of that, those people who are doing that kind of work. I think being able to like pull all that information together and make it and kind of like be able to spit out fantasy football advice based on that, I think is incredible. Because when I think about like playing 30 years ago, I mean, the amount of information that you got was injury reports. It's like that, and it, like you weren't looking at matchups. You just figured, okay, I've got Jerry Rice on my team, he's going to beat everybody, but you don't realize that maybe he's going up against Deion Sanders this week, and maybe Deion is gonna match up with him. Now, to me, that's the big thing, and I credit my background in baseball with that, is the studying the matchups, because like I was, recently I was kind of like looking at some trade targets, looking at CeeDee Lamb, looking at Justin Jefferson. I play guillotine leagues, and I spent a whole lot of money on Justin Jefferson when he became available. And a big reason why is because I looked at his schedule coming up immediately the first 4 weeks out of their bye, and then at the end of the toward the end of the season, especially the fantasy playoffs, he has got an absolutely smashing schedule. A lot of games indoors, a lot of games at home, where you look at you start looking at those things and examining that, and just kind of realizing, hey, you know what, this guy's better here, or he's not as good playing outdoors. People talk about Geno Smith indoors versus outdoors, that kind of thing. I think it's I think you look at those, you really look at all of those factors, and another person who does great work, Chris Allen. You start looking at the weather reports, and hey, you know what? I love dome quarterbacks. I wish they all played in domes. So I started looking at those, but then you look at guys. Well, what is Jared Goff have a problem in week 16 because he has to play in Chicago when it's going to be, freezing temperatures? That's really something to consider when you have him for that week. And thankfully every one of the leagues that I have Jared Goff in, I've got another quarterback that I can do, because I love QB platoons.
Yeah, I see a lot of injuries lately, and we're gonna have in 2 weeks Jesse Morse. I know that you know of him. So he is a doctor in injuries as well, and we cannot wait to have him on the show and talk injuries, because this year has been really an eye opener, and there has been a lot of injuries. So. Are your teams hurting because of that? What can you tell us?
Oh my
about
goodness! Oh my goodness! I've got a couple of teams that I really relied on Christian McCaffrey with. I thought I was. Oh yeah, I'm getting Christian McCaffrey with the first pick. One of my prominent teams got Isaiah Pacheco. I do have a couple of Rashee Rice shares that hurt.
Pacheco and Rice this year.
They were playing so well too. They were playing so well, and even some of the other guys. I mean, Brandon Ayuk. I invested in him. Nico Collins was what he was, kind of like him and Derrick Henry and Jaden Daniels just put my very first guillotine league team on their backs, and now Nico Collins is out for 4 weeks. it's tough, but this is one of the things that everyone Porras likes to talk about. People talk about our players injury prone. It's like, no, they play a violent sport where 98% of the players experience some sort of injury. It's just some are able to play through it, and some are able to, or just aren't hurt bad enough. But some of the injuries are, knock people out for a good chunk of the season. And I think it's the frustrating part, but I think it's also the great challenge on finding guys who maybe are able to, getting a deep enough roster where, hey, you know what? I lost this guy. Okay, I could plug this guy in and still win a championship. And I've done it. I won a championship, I think it was 3 years ago, with Taysom Hill as my quarterback. Just because we got to the playoffs, our starting quarterback got hurt. Taysom Hill had the best matchups, and we won. So go figure that.
How about Tua? What do you think about his injuries and him coming back? I hear a lot of people saying that he shouldn't. What are your thoughts into this?
You know what? It's one of those things where, it's really up to the individual, and really to be as informed as possible. Because a lot of people, it's really easy to say he shouldn't play. And, but how do you tell a 26-year-old man that the thing that he's probably been doing since he was like 5 or 6 years old, and he's been great at it. He's one of the best 32 people in the world. And you want to tell him that he can't do that for the rest of his life. And he's going to, who knows how many more years he's got on this earth. And, so it's hard to do that, but I'm glad he got, I'm glad he took in as much information. I'm glad he took enough time to really get healthy. I hope he plays with that, that helmet with the extra padding. I hope he slides more than he runs into defenders. But I also think he's phenomenal, and Mike McDaniel, utilizes him in a way where he can, get rid of the ball quickly so he doesn't take as many hits. And I think that's important. But I think if someone, makes an educated decision to continue to play something that he loves, something that he's passionate about, I'm not going to say that he can't play. But again, one of the things that we're really learning this year, and this is something Edwin has talked about, told me about both privately and on the air, head injuries do not all heal at the same rate. Everybody heals on their own. Malik Neighbors gets knocked out of 2 games. Marvin Harrison Jr. plays the week after his head injury. They had to go through the same protocols. So, every no 2 heads are the same. They're better when they're better. So you can't rush them to get back. Yeah.
I see that Doug is saying that Tua wears the helmet that has been rated the safest. He decided against the Guardian Cap.
Well, I mean, he's gonna be as informed as possible, and I think the Dolphins are gonna make sure that he's informed as possible, because number one, they don't want him to get hurt, and they've also invested heavily in him. This team is, I mean, they both financially and also the players around him. So, financially in him and the players around him who are built to play with him. So, it's too bad he's not playing with the Guardian Cap. But if he's making an educated decision, that's all we can ask.
I'm gonna play the devil advocate here and ask you, bless you, and ask you a question. So, do you think it's all the player choices in this situation, or it's the NFL choice to put them on the spot, and because they pay them that much money, that they tell them they have to play? What do you think, like your own in your own perspective into this? Me playing the devil advocate right now.
I think it used to be much more that the teams would push the players to play. But I think as more and more information about concussions has come out, and some of the unfortunate some of the suicides that have happened with players, and some of the debilitating injuries that guys had because of concussions, I think a lot more attention is being played and paid to that, and rightfully so. So I think teams and players are making much better educated decisions, especially when they've got independent neurologists coming in to evaluate them and be a part of the clearing of the concussion protocols. So I think that is very important. I think there's now less of the teams pushing the player, rather and they will to a certain extent, but I think there's been enough unfortunate things happen that they want to make sure that everyone is making as informed a decision as possible before returning to the field.
And I did watch Hernandez on Netflix, the series.
Man.
I don't know if you did. And it opened a lot of eyes on how, the injury can affect someone. And it's crazy. I'm waiting I think they're going to do another part of it. So I'm waiting to see and watch the other part. It's crazy how people can, get injured and get affected from all of that. It's just crazy. I don't know if you watch it as well. If you didn't,
I haven't, but it is one of the things that's on my to-do list when it comes to watching it. It'll probably be something I get to watch after the off season. It's crazy how little I'm able to watch TV during the season, but but at least my wife and I still make time to watch Survivor. So that's
nice.
Probably the one non-sports thing I watch during the week.
Yeah. I want to share something that I saw that you posted today online, and it was a really sad day for you about Fernando Valenzuela, that he passed away yesterday, I believe.
Yes.
And I know that you have a story to share about him. May his soul rest in peace. If you want to talk a little bit about him and your story together, if you can share that with us, Jorge, please.
Well, it's a collection of stories, but it really starts with being a 13-year-old kid, 13-year-old kid, and seeing this guy from Mexico. And this is the same shared heritage. He was born in Mexico. I grew up I was born and grew up in the United States, but my parents are from Mexico. And but having that shared heritage, there was something different. And
Yes.
And him coming up and just exploding, becoming a superstar almost overnight at 20 years old, doing things that no one had ever done. And I'm watching it and I'm like, this guy is like me. And he's doing these impossible things. And I just thought, you know what? Maybe it's good to dream, because I grew up, being the son of Mexican immigrants. My parents never told me no. Some of the kids that I grew up with, their parents would be like, "Oh, there's no Mexicans that do that. Go, work in a factory. Go do this." My parents never told me no. They said, "You're coming to the United States, so you could study, you could go to the university and get an education and get a job with your brain and not your back." And Fernando made it okay to dream. And and because he did something that was impossible, and it was spectacular. I mean, he lifted our people, and I hope I can hold it together on this one, because I told this story to someone earlier today and I started to cry. But 2007, I'd been working for the Dodgers that was my second year. And my father and his best friend, big baseball fan, but he was battling cancer at the time. And I kept telling my father, I said, "Pop, bring Jose to the game. I'll set up the tickets. I want you to meet. I want to take you to the press box. I want you guys to meet Fernando. I want you to meet Jaime Jarrin, who is the Hall of Fame broadcaster who would translate for Fernando during that incredible run in 1981." And it was, finally they came in my second season working for the team, and they also brought two other my relatives, my uncles, my tios, and they were waiting. And my father's friend was getting nervous, and it was probably about 20 minutes till the game, and he started to be like, "Oh, we should come back. We should come back to another game." And it was September, and the season was about to end, and I'm like, I've been waiting almost 2 years for you to come to this game. You can wait another 15 minutes. And I'm like, in Mexican culture, to talk to your elders in that way, that's something that that is not expected. But you know what? They knew that I was a man. I was almost 40 years old at the time. I could speak as a man, not as a child. So they came. Eventually they came, and Fernando and these four men who were all in their 60s and 70s, just all of a sudden were like children. They were just so excited to meet him. And one of the greatest things that one of them told Fernando is, Fernando, gracias por enseñarnos el camino. Thank you for showing us the way. And because that in a nutshell said what Fernando did. He lifted our people and showed us what was possible, and that we could do this in the United States, that we didn't have to take a back seat. And to me, that I credit Fernando with those 8 years at playing for the Dodgers, because he fanned a love for me for that team, and to eventually become a part of that organization. It was the realization of a dream, and I credit him, and I cried at his passing. But I had 3 months ago, I was at a benefit event, and I happened to be get invited to sit at the table with Fernando, and I sat with him the entire evening, and he just cracked jokes, and it was phenomenal. And he gave me, he would always rib me about something, whatever, and that's when I knew that he liked me, because if he didn't kind of like make fun of me about something, he would have just left me. If he didn't like me, he would have just left me alone. But instead, he wanted to kind of give me a hard time about something. And I thought there was something going on with him, but I couldn't believe that a little more than 3 months later that he'd be gone. And it's when someone from your youth, an idol, it's kind of like a little part of your childhood dies with them, and that was something that I hurt. But one other part about that meeting was also the second person who came, Jaime Harin, who's still alive, and I spoke with his son earlier today. And he credits Fernando with, the exposure that he got as his translator, that he got was what got him to the Hall of Fame. Wow. He went up to my father and shook my father's hand, and he told him how proud he was of that I was working in the organization. And for him to say that to my father, this man who's an idol to the Mexican community, both in Los Angeles and in Mexico, to say that to my father in front of his best friend and other family members was one of the proudest moments of my life. And just that and I'm forever grateful. And my father's friend passed away less than 6 months later. He never got to another baseball game in the rest of his life, and he was a huge baseball fan. And when he was eulogized, his daughters, one of his daughters said that was one of the most special moments of his life, to meet Fernando that day. And just to do that, just kind of like the realization of that dream. It made all those 8 years worth it. And I've got, we could go on 10 podcasts, and I wouldn't finish telling stories about those years. But yeah, just to hear that, I'm glad I didn't cry on that one. Maybe because I cried earlier, I didn't have any tears left. But to do that, I would. I just think about that, and what he meant to our community, and the Mexican community, the Los Angeles community, the baseball community. It's special. I'm just ever so grateful that not only that I got to see those days when I was a kid, but also to, as an adult, to relive them and, really call him a friend.
That's amazing. So I I hear you saying how his, success, he influenced the Mexican American community and baseball fans in Mexico. How he was like remembered. I think he's from you talking about him, he's remembered with honor, and this is just amazing, amazing story to share. And how someone is telling your dad how well you're doing in your community as well is such an honor too. We are so
Jeez.
proud of you too, Jorge. Thank you for sharing that. It shows the human, like the humanity in you.
Thank
And
you.
some people don't see it. They just see the person sometimes behind the computer. But you talking about all of this, it shows a lot the person you are, and how well and rounded you are. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really
And
appreciate
you
it.
and one of the things, part of the reason why I kind of leaned into Spanish,
Yeah.
kind of leaned into Spanish, Spanglish in my content is really just been like, you know what, this is who I am. And I just, and you know what, I love it, and it helps me to connect with people of all cultures. Because I'll ask them about their favorite food, their favorite Mexican
Yes.
food, and we'll bond over that. And so that to me is something, and that is also a tribute, because it was just like, because when I grew up, it was very much discouraged to speak Spanish publicly,
Yes.
or to, for a long time I was called George, not Jorge, because it was just like, it was, assimilation was important. Now it's kind of like, you know what, celebrate the differences, celebrate
I
who we
agree.
are. I'm proud to be in this country. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a Mexican, and just celebrate both of those.
Yeah, I'm doing a misconception video at my school because of these misconceptions. Like, if you speak Spanish, if you speak Arabic, if you are from a different country, there's a lot of misconception that's happening around us, and we need to just put these to the side and just look at the person and not from where they are or what language they speak. And we connect on so many levels because you couldn't speak Spanish before. I cannot speak Arabic right now. And there's a lot of misconception about it. So I totally agree with that. And the word is better than this. It's much,
Oh,
much
absolutely.
better. It's
And it's
much
really
better.
finding common ground. The
Yes.
finding the common ground of all the different things it's, we could talk about all these different things, but then we'll come back to fantasy football or something else.
I agree.
I think it's it's something that we could bond, finding that common ground, that, and maybe sharing part of your culture so that people can enjoy. I can't tell you how many people have asked me for food recommendations, like for tacos or something like that, different kind of meats to try. I can't tell you how many times I gave someone like a tip, or even gave them a recipe, and they would show me a picture. They would show me a picture of something that they made based off of like information that I gave them, or if I gave them a recipe, and they're just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. You changed my life." And it was like, "Oh man, I just told you to try birria tacos."
So America is full of like multicultural
Oh yeah,
people, and it what makes America. So it's
absolutely.
good to have cultures from every single part of the country, and just be proud of it. Be proud of it, and be
Absolutely.
proud of who we are. I love that. Talking about your writings, what motivated you to transition from traditional sports writing to the fantasy sport industry?
You know what? It was partly, you know what? I kind of like wanted to look at, really explore this. It was one of those things where I thought, you know what? I'm a trained journalist,
Yes.
and I thought, you know what? I can do that. I can do that kind of writing too, and maybe I could bring some of the things that I do into fantasy football, fantasy football content. Um, one of the things that I did, so kind of, bring what I do into that writing. One of the things that I've done for the last 4 years, I started in 2021. I started a series, an NFL Insider series on the Familia FFP podcast, where I would talk to one insider. It could be a beat writer, a podcaster, a broadcaster, somebody who is an insider for all 32 teams. And I would use that content in my writing. So it would be like, Jordan Rodriguez would tell me, kind of give me insight into Cooper Kupp's, recovery from his hamstring injury, or how does Matthew Stafford look, or a Baltimore Ravens writer would, I would talk to Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens, and he would tell me what the offense is looking like in the second year, because I think we go into numbers so much, but also we have to bring in the human aspect a little bit. What kind of like, what are the coaches thinking? And so it's kind of like melding everything together and just adding a different element. So kind of like, and I love interviewing people. I love talking to people. I think it's one of my favorite things to do as a journalist. And yeah, I do that, and not just look at the numbers. You look at the numbers definitely, but also just add an extra layer of things, and that's what also got me to become really good friends with Edwin. Because I was fascinated with how he looked at injuries, and now he's gosh, it's funny. His wife told my daughter actually shadowed Edwin for a few days, and she said, and his wife said, it's like, it's too bad that your dad and Edwin don't live in the same city, because we'd probably be hanging out all the time. And I think it's true. I really think it's true.
That's so cool. Talking about high school football coverage, reflecting on your time covering high school football for the LA Daily News, do you have any memorable stories or standout moments?
Yes, I do. And I've shared one side of one with you and Doug. My favorite one, and this was actually covering Division III college football, and it was Game 1 of the 1988 World Series, and I'm at a college about 5 miles away from Dodger Stadium, and I'm covering the game, and we're listening to the game on a radio, because it was, this is Division III. They don't have TVs in the press box or anything, so we're listening to that Kirk Gibson at bat. And all of a sudden, at one point, all we heard was just screaming, just and then I was like, "It's a home run!" And the writer for the LA Times, I'm with the LA Daily News. We're like high-fiving, because it was halftime of our game. It just so happened that it worked out perfectly. It's halftime of our game, and we're high-fiving and everything, and hugging, and just all of a sudden we looked at each other and was like, "Oh, this is kind of like we just broke a rule." Well, the funny thing is, that writer, before the game, he asked me, before the Dodger game started, he said, "You wouldn't believe, somebody gave me tickets to the game today, and I couldn't go because I had to cover this one. If I would have kept the tickets, would you have gone with me? Would you have just left this and go?" And I'm sitting there, I'm like, "We can't do that. We'd get fired." And then all of a sudden, when we're watching, when the home run happened at halftime of our game, all of a sudden it was like, we could have been there. We could have been in history. I mean, we might have been, but luckily we both stayed. We didn't get fired. That writer, his name is Sam Farmer from the Los Angeles Times. He has his plaque at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In 2019, he was inducted into the writers wing of the Hall of Fame. And so I'd like to think that by playing conscience with him, that he ended up not getting fired from the LA Times, because who knows, maybe he'd be doing something completely different now. So but so that was good. But the great thing about covering high school and small college and junior college sports really taught me to be self-sufficient, but also how to write on deadline, because the games would end 9:30, 9:45, and I would have maybe 20 to 30 minutes to write and send in my story. Sometimes I would literally have to call in and dictate the story to someone so they could type it in, or if it was a big enough game, they would give me a laptop that I could plug into a phone and send the story. So literally just taught me so much. I mean, and honestly, it made me how to write quickly, and also to be time efficient, and it just gave me so many reps on how to write different ways, and just ever so grateful for those days.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about DirecTV. What was it like heading multiple publications for DirecTV? Can you describe some of the key projects you led?
Oh my goodness! Well, I worked on a few, My DirecTV magazine. That was one of the main ones, and they had a guide and everything, and we would put together content on a monthly basis that would highlight the shows and the sports and the games that would be on that month. And it was great. It was being back in sports. I could lean on my newspaper background, my journalistic background. Just I would do a lot of editing, and really it got me ready for bigger jobs. The job at the Dodgers, where so much of that, and so much of the editing that I do today, editing for the web is no different than what editing for publication. In fact, editing for the web may be a little bit easier, just because it's just like, it's words on a page, and when it's editing for publication, you're walking a tightrope, and you're gonna fall. You don't want to have any errors. If you have an error on the website, it's like, okay, boom, let me fix it right now. You're able to fix that there. But great times. One of my good friends from those days, he actually recommended that I apply for the job at the Dodgers. He's the one who sent me the job posting and said, "Hey man, I think this is you." And wouldn't you know, that led to that position. But really taught me a lot, and it was fun because I was back working in sports. I was also doing entertainment. So whatever were the latest movies or shows that were being released, whether on HBO or different channels, we got to highlight it. So it was a lot of fun. Occasionally I even got to interview some people, boxers, football players, hockey players, baseball players, everything. It was awesome.
That's amazing. What an amazing journey. What advice would you give to aspiring sports writers or fantasy sports analysts looking to break into the industry?
Well, aspiring sports.
What Chad is asking.
Let me see. Let me look at that one. So. Chef, let's go. Vámonos. I could edit in 2 languages for you. So
I know, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I'll help you with 2 others.
Exactly. Well, and when it comes to being an aspiring sports writer, I think it's very different from when I started, because there wasn't as much high school sports coverage. There's not as much high school sports coverage now as it was then. So there aren't as many like newspaper opportunities. So a lot of times people have to create their own. I think one of the things that I recommend to young people all the time is be versatile. What you're not just going to write. There's very people who are going to write. You got to learn how to talk into a microphone. You need to learn how to talk on screen. You need to be able to, get sources, build a network, all of those things. When it comes to the fantasy sports industry, it's 2 things. Just start. Do something. And this is something that Mauricio Gutierrez, our good friend from Estadio Fantasy, NFL Español, he's also doing some great work at Football Guys. Mauricio told me, he's like, just keep going. He told me, You're one of the few Latinos who are doing this. We need more people, more of us doing this. And so you got to keep doing it. And don't worry about how many people are watching or reading your content. Just put it out there, because someone's going to find you. So, you're and so I think number one, and this is the thing that Matthew Berry says, get your reps, get good. And get good with your analysis, be a good, do everything you can to be a good writer. If you're good with analytics but you're not good with writing, keep putting stuff out there. Read a lot of read content, listen to other podcasts, learn different ways that you could become a better analyst. And because like I said, initially I just thought targets and targets and rush attempts were the way to be good. No, it's much more than that. And I just but really it's starting and building a network. You can't just do this in a vacuum. It takes people. I mean, one of the great things, the network that I've built, it led me to groups, to different groups. One of the most prominent ones is the Cookout group. Chris Allen, who's now my colleague at Fantasy Life, he started the Cookout group because he wanted people of color who were creating content to work in the fantasy industry, different ways that they could that those people, that all people could actually become larger voices, because what he wanted and what we all wanted was, we didn't want to take jobs from people. We just knew that we wanted to add to the industry, and that's what we've done. That's what we've done. I think it's been a wonderful journey to the different, when I see other people getting positions with different sites. Tara Roberts going to Yahoo, Dan Titus going to Yahoo, Kendall Valenzuela at Fantasy Life. I mean, I see Jagger May and Alfredo Brown over at Football Guys, Terrell Furman over at Fantasy Pros. All of these different people who are coming up and building names. Liz Losa over at who's doing great things and just signed a multi-year contract to continue at ESPN. Eric Moody also at ESPN. Seeing all these people, all these different and diverse voices, I think it's wonderful. It makes me so happy to see all the different people who are really just adding to the industry, adding different voices, adding different audiences to the industry. And I think it's great. I think we've only added and not taken away. Ray Garvin, one of the great voices. His journey has been spectacular, and I love seeing all these people just kind of like keep growing.
I love that you applaud to people. Not many.
Oh, Marcus Grant.
I love that you applaud to people. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marcus Grant. Yeah, we're gonna have them on the pod soon as well. I cannot wait.
Love Marcus.
Yes, I can't wait to talk to Marcus as well. So
it's funny. Can I tell a quick story on the Super Bowl? On the day of the Super Bowl, Robbie Johnson of the Rum Boys Robbie, he had kind of like a 2-hour show where he was bringing people on in 15-minute increments. And so I just put my name in at a certain time, and I didn't even realize who was going on before me or after me, or maybe I was just putting in for a particular time slot. And Marcus was on right before me. And, brought on his son, and I was like, and I get on and I'm like, Robbie, you're killing me. This is like having to, go on, step on stage after Prince played. So, and Robbie just laughed, but Marcus, just love Marcus. You're fantastic.
I love everybody that I see at the expo. You are all amazing. It's just refreshing. Jorge, like, your experience is various. You started with Yahoo, RotoWire, Fantasy Points, Fantasy Pros. You did the Direct TV. You did a lot of coverages for high school. Your career is so highlighted that it's really refreshing, and it shows your passion. How did, like, all of this, having all of this in your life, help you to balance your professional responsibilities with spending quality time with your wife, Shannon, and your three daughters?
Well, you know what? I think one of the things that I wanted to pass on to really wanted to pass on to my daughters, and my wife and I both do that, is to do something that you're passionate about.
Yes.
And when I've been at my best in my life and in their lives, have been where we just, where I did something that I really, really enjoyed. And my kids got to grow up at Dodger Stadium. They got to go to the games. They got to run the bases with, after the games, and they got to meet some of these Dodger greats. And it just, they got to see also that I worked really hard. Sometimes I miss dinner because
Yeah.
I was at a game, or even in the off season, it'd be hard to get home at a reasonable hour. But they saw that I loved what I did. And to this day, they see, and that's why I wanted to come into this industry, because I wanted to, when I started on the podcast, I wanted to see if I enjoyed it. And I fell in love with the industry. And that's when I said, you know what, I want to do this for hopefully the rest of my career. And when they asked me, what was something what I want, I said, I wanted to do something I'm passionate about. I've done jobs where I chased a check, and so I show my family that I'm doing that. And plus, one of the great things about this position that I have, it's 100% remote. So I'm doing it from home, and I think it's just I love being able to I could work, and then all of a sudden it's like, if my wife worked late today, so right before we got on, I got stuff into dinner, so that when my kids got home, they could actually, they're in high school, they could just kind of like be ready to eat right when they got home. Nice. And but yeah, no, today happens to be my off day because I work on Sundays. Yes. When I I could go on tomorrow, I'll work until the game starts, and then I jump back on after. But I'm here, and if there's an emergency, I can if my kid needs to come home sick from school, I could dart over there and get back home. And that's a lot easier than when I was at Dodger Stadium. If I had to leave to pick up a kid, then it's like, okay, well, I'm gone for the day, and because I'd lived 30 miles from Dodger Stadium. Yes. Now it's like, okay, go, come back, and I'm right back in the office, in the home office.
That's awesome to have, support from the family. How about your daughters? Do they share the love of sports with you? Do you want them to play one day fantasy football, or become writers, or become like anything that you're doing right now? What are they like? What their love? What their favorite sports related activities, or anything of that sort?
No, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think one of the things that I noticed growing up, and really just as I got to work with people who played sports at a high level, yes, both men and women, I noticed that the women who played sports, there was a level of confidence and self-assuredness that was really, I thought it was phenomenal. And I just thought, and I always said I wanted my daughters to play sports, and but I wasn't going to force any one game on them. I just wanted them to try everything and embrace what they want. And I think it's been great. Our oldest daughter, who's 20 years old, she's a junior in college right now. That she played everything. When she was in high school, she played soccer, volleyball, and lacrosse. She was captain on all three teams. She was voted the student athlete of the year at her graduating class. And I still remember, I still have the video when the athletic director announced it. He just said, there was no question who was going to be the outstanding student, the outstanding female student athlete. And I teared up. And my twin daughters, who are 17 years old, they are fantastic swimmers. They both went to the city. They both went to the city finals. And right now, one of my daughters, she was talking about, she's writing it's college applications time. She's writing an essay. One of her essays is that she was considering quitting swimming. And my wife who also swam, she goes, no, you can't quit. You're going to finish the season. You're finished the season. And how she was talking about the fact that she was so grateful because she loves the sport so much, and that's something that she's going to continue to do for the rest of her life. And they're really good. They're I'm not going to say they're going to continue swimming after high school, but they're good enough to be, they went to the city finals, and they were among the finalists in the entire city. And my wife and I are insanely proud. But that was the thing. It was a lot of the women who I met and got to know who played sports. They would just say, have them play everything, and then have them figure out what they want to do. And I think we've raised very, very self-assured, very strong-willed, healthy, athletic women. And I think it's just my wife and I are just insanely proud, and I feel like we've given them life skills that are that sports have been able to give them life skills that are going to stick with them. And well into their later years after they're done playing.
I agree with you. I became a swimming official because of my kids, and my oldest, he was top 13 in Connecticut, in the state.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, in swimming. And like JC was saying, my daughter, this is her 3rd year, and she plays rugby. So I love sports. I love that, our kids who love sports and do music and everything, they are so well grounded. It's amazing that they do that.
Oh my goodness. And it's funny is, like, you talk about music.
Yes.
My kids picked like during COVID, they picked up different things. They would play different instruments. I remember one time we were at we were at my in-laws, and they did a little Taylor Swift concert, and they just started playing. They would play like 3 or 4 songs, and we just had a little sing-along with Taylor Swift songs. And it was, and this was like all self-taught from YouTube videos. And I'm like, wow, these are things that these girls are beyond me. So, and I love it.
Jorge, I don't want to finish this episode because you are amazing, but I do still have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I do have a couple of questions I need to ask you. So,
absolutely.
Do you have any future goals, and like both professionally and personally, that you hope to achieve with the support of your family?
Wow, future goals. I want to retire and live a long and happy life, but still playing tons of fantasy sports. It's funny.
That's your passion.
Right now the biggest goal is get our daughters through college and maybe graduate school, and then we'll see where we are. I think. Gosh, goals. I think a goal might be in 4 years when the Olympics are in Los Angeles, do something related to the Olympics. I don't even know what. I mean, it could be media relations. It could be, volunteering, holding up lap signs at a swim meet, at the swim meet, telling Katie Ledecky what lap she's on, or something like that. Something like that. I mean, it's I think one thing is just I want to do something I'm passionate about. And, I love what I love the people at Fantasy Life, and I'd love to see that site grow into some, that site, that team, that organization grow into something. I feel like we've got to start it. We're well on the way to doing something really, really special.
So, good guy AI is asking. He's just curious if you have any new Olympic crushes.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Who,
I'm not forgetting.
it's hard not to, gosh, you kind of caught me off guard, because what's funny is like to look at some of the people, the Olympians, men and women, they're all like my kids' age. So I don't know if I don't know if it's appropriate for me to have crushes on them. I will tell you, I think I do love greatness, and people who are just so great. I think Katie Ledecky,
She's
doing
awesome.
what she did, doing what she continues to do. I think that's absolutely incredible. Gosh, I mean, I think that's one that will always just, to know that that someone like that is so much better than everybody else. It's I mean, like Patrick Mahomes is not that much better than Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or something like that. It's to be that dominant is
Michael Phelps
pretty
at some
incredible.
too. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah. You see Usain Bolt or something like that. I know he wasn't in these Olympics, but to see something like that, to see sustained greatness, because some Olympians, from one Olympiad to the next, they're done. But to see sustained greatness over 1, 2, or 3 is something absolutely spectacular. And I just I think it's I think it's fun. She wasn't an Olympian, or they weren't Olympians, but I think Paul Skeens and Olivia Dunn are the baseball version of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So I think that's I think she was close to being in the Olympics. I think he would have been in the Olympics if baseball had been involved.
That's crazy. So one more question that I almost ask everyone about it. So do you have a secret that you've never shared with anyone and you would like to reveal it on the show?
That I've never told anybody. Gosh, I'm a pretty open book. I will say, I'm trying to think. What would be a good secret to tell? This is great. This is great podcasting. I'm a great podcast guest right now. Well, it's not something that I tell very often, but I believe it was over a year and a half. I was undefeated in Coleco electronic football back when I was in 6th and 7th grade. I think it was like from all the way through. I think I started in 5th grade. I started a winning streak. Nobody could beat me. Nobody could beat me for like a year and a half. And I still remember, like, I was there was I was in my 6th grade year. I was in a we had kids from one school bust into our school, so we were kind of like mixed, and some of our kids from our school got bused to the other school. And then one day I'm in a competition with the other one. It's like my school. It was like my school against their school, and I beat the kid from the other school. And so it was a lot, because he was saying he was the best at his. And so that was that would be, I guess, my little secret. So maybe the passion for football was way back then, though the football were just like little lines on a screen.
I love that. I love it. I really don't want to finish this episode at all, Jorge. But before I conclude, could you please let our audience know how they can connect with you and where to find you on social media?
Oh yeah, well, Twitter's the best place to find me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter. My DMs are always open. I've been a little worse about putting out content putting out tweets and everything on just because the day job has been really busy. But I do try and throw out some information on there. But yeah, find me there. Definitely. I think the other thing, join the Discord at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, because every Sunday morning I go in there and answer start sit questions. So throw out some fantasy advice there too. So I just love it. But yeah, tweet at me, send me a DM, whatever, and I'll try and answer as quickly as possible.
That's amazing. Thank you for turning in to this episode of the Game Changers. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Jorge Martin and gained valuable insights into his word and the word of fantasy football. Thank you for sharing your expertise, Jorge, with us tonight. Life lessons and wisdom. We appreciate you so much. I really don't want to finish. It's almost 1 hour and a half. I seriously don't want to finish that. Join us. I love every second. Join us for the next episode of the Game Changers on Wednesday, October 30th, when I welcome Lou Bronson as my special guest. I also want to express my gratitude again to Evan, Iggy, JC, and the TSA team for their continued support and for providing me with this exceptional platform, sharing my guests' authentic stories and experiences. A special acknowledgement for JC for his invaluable contribution behind the scene. Your efforts are deeply appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more viewers like you. Follow us on social media and stay updated on upcoming episodes and join in our community, the TSA affiliation, the Sports Affiliation, TSA crew, where everyone is welcome. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla and Jorge signing off. Have a great evening, everybody.
Salud.
Salud.